Hey, thanks for stopping by today. My name is Jeremy Griffin, the Ministry and Operations Director here at Redux Church. If you're looking for a local church to become a part of in your area and just haven't found the place you feel God is leading you to, consider reaching out to us here at Redux. We know lots of great places and would love to assist you in finding the place God has for you. On the other hand, you may be here right now because you've become a bit disenchanted with church. And if that's the case, maybe Redux is the place for you. We are a real church in a virtual world. While we don't meet every week in the traditional sense, we do have a community online where you can chat, ask questions, and connect with others like yourself. We do, on occasion, meet in person for small group discussions and special worship and prayer events, but new Redux discussions are available every Friday morning online. In any case, we are glad you're here now, and if we can do anything to serve you, please let us know. You can contact us anytime online at redux.church. God bless.
You're listening to the Stream Grace Network.
And thank you so much for joining us today on another chapter in John. I've got Rachel and Gabe with me today. You guys,
hey,
thanks for being here, Gabe.
You're welcome.
This is your first. Is this your first time on Redux, isn't it?
It is my first time.
Really?
I mean, on the talking part. You've been in the worship team.
That's true. That's true.
Who are we kidding? You are the worship
honored. I'm so
Glad
honored.
someone said it. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm excited about this. Just for you guys listening, if you haven't done it already, take a second and spend some time in worship, right? So to do that, you can go find your favorite playlist on YouTube, Spotify, whatever. Or you can go to redux.church and listen to the 20 songs we haven't updated yet. Unless you're listening to this like way in the future and maybe they've been flagged for copyright violation and they're not there at all. I don't know. Anyway, take a second to do that. If you're back and you've joined us, we're going to get right into it. We're going to be with John chapter 9, and we're covering the whole chapter, which is not common for us in one session. We're going to cover the whole chapter, but we couldn't really break this one up. It's just one big story. So without further ado, here we go. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins. Jesus answered, this happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. But while I'm here in the world, I am the light of the world. Then he spit on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam. Siloam means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. His neighbors and others who knew him as a blind beggar asked each other, isn't this the man who used to sit and beg? Some said he was, and others said, no, he just looks like him. But the beggar kept saying, yes, I am, the same one. They asked, who healed you? What happened? He told them, the man they called Jesus made mud and spread it over my eyes and told me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash yourself. So I went and washed, and now I can see. Where is he now? They asked. I don't know, he replied. Then they took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees, because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus had made the mud and healed him. The Pharisees asked the man all about it. So he told them, he put the mud over my eyes, and when I washed it away, I could see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man Jesus is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath. Others said, but how could an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs? So there was a deep division of opinion among them. Then the Pharisees again questioned the man who had been blind and demanded, what's your opinion about this man who healed you? The man replied, I think he must be a prophet. The Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and could now see, so they called in his parents. They asked them, is this your son? Was he born blind? If so, how can he now see? His parents replied, we know this is our son and that he was born blind, but we don't know how he can see or who healed him. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who had announced that anyone saying Jesus was the Messiah would be expelled from the synagogue. That's why they said, "He is old enough, ask him." So for the second time, they called in the man who had been blind and told him, "God should get the glory for this because we know this man Jesus is a sinner." "I don't know whether he is a sinner," the man replied, "but I know this. I was blind and now I can see." "But what did he do?" they asked. "How did he heal you?" "Look," the man exclaimed, "I told you once. Didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they cursed him and said, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from." "Why, that's very strange," the man replied. "He healed my eyes, and yet you don't know where he comes from? We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he is ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done it." "You were born a total sinner," they answered. "Are you trying to teach us?" And they threw him out of the synagogue. When Jesus heard what had happened, he found the man and asked, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man answered, "Who is he, sir? I want to believe in him." "You have seen him," Jesus said, "and he is speaking to you." "Yes, Lord, I believe," the man said, and he worshiped Jesus. Then Jesus told him, "I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think they see that they are blind." Some Pharisees who were standing nearby heard him and asked, "Are you saying we're blind?" "If you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty," Jesus replied. "But you remain guilty because you claim you can see." All right. Pretty good stuff.
Oh, does it just not like get in your bones and under your skin about the Pharisees?
Yeah, it's frustrating. It is definitely frustrating. But there's an irony to me on this because it brings an odd level of peace about where we are today in the church world because it's nothing new.
Well, okay, so I read this Saturday morning. We were at the lake, and I get up early, and I'm out by the lake having coffee, and I'm reading this. Adam comes out a little later, and I'm reading it to him, and of course, it's kind of like just giving the basics. I said, these were the religious people of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, they cared more about the Sabbath than they did this man's life and that he could see. And I said, it's infuriating, isn't it? And I remember when I was young and realizing, oh, these were like church people.
Yeah.
And again, it's very, very depicting on what we're living in. But yet the church people, because I was the church, and I said, we thought we were doing right.
Right.
But it was more, even the Pharisees thought this was about God, but yet they thought God would be more mad because it was on the Sabbath, not realizing that God's heart for the man to see.
Right.
And to not just see physically, but see the Messiah.
It's funny to me because as we've been going through this, we're in chapter 9, as we've been going through John, it's almost like there's just one theme that I see over and over and over and over again, and that was that religion served itself and Christ came to redeem mankind. Like his whole thing was to serve God, and it was a constant battle between religion and relationship.
Strong battle. And their religion, they thought they were serving God.
Right.
But
that was
they were
their
serving
equivalent.
the law of Moses.
Right. I had, and I want Gabe to talk at some point. Sorry, buddy.
Hi, Gabe.
I had a conversation recently that it contextually kind of fits this, but a pastor said something about new members at a church. And I said, what does that look like? Because he's talking about they're becoming members today. And I said, the thing is, in that whole conversation, my point was that so often the membership side of church there's two sides to it, right? There's the control side on the leadership, but from the people's standpoint, so much of it is redemption.
Yeah.
They see that if I become a member of this church, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm following these rules. If I
It's
read,
like my library card. It's
that's
like
right.
My,
Yeah. So I think all of that's pretty destructive. And but now that I've said all that, Gabe, what are your thoughts? What stuck out to you in this whole thing?
So you guys went in a direction I was not anticipating.
It's okay. No,
It's
this is
okay.
good.
It's gonna scatter.
You can
shoot.
change it totally.
I have some thoughts about what you guys are saying, but the thing that stood out to me originally was that of all things to heal the man's eyes, he used spit and mud.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought it was interesting because I just immediately in my brain had an analogy of like, I guess nothing specific, but how ironically sometimes the things that you would never expect to be, like, I guess for a more specific example, the thing I think about in this case scenario is how for such a large part of my life, I wanted to be in full-time ministry in the sense of I wanted to work at a church because it's something I aspired to do. I liked the idea of that and enjoyed church and thought if I had a chance to be there 5 days or I guess 6 days a week, why not, you know? And how I remember at one point Dad telling me that whenever I decided that's what I wanted to do, that the most ministry I'm going to do is, or that maybe that he was saying the most ministry he's ever done was actually outside of church, ironically. Either way, and I started like kind of looking for that. And like just even today, somebody came up to me and said they found one of my videos of us doing worship on Instagram, just scrolling through reels.
Really?
They didn't even know I did music. Like I didn't talk about it. It was someone from the gym. And they were, that now reached somebody that might not have ever had that opportunity. And it's not because I was like, hey, you should come to my church on Sunday or whatever, you know?
Yeah. What I hear you saying is God uses some of the most unorthodox ways to reach people.
Yeah.
Spit, dirt.
Yeah.
Mud,
And I thought it was kind of funny.
Instagram reel from how long ago?
I did think it was kind of funny how you could almost make an argument that Jesus was kind of like the OG sticking it to the man guy. Really? Like I
don't speak that language well, but I think I understand what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like he was the first one who was like, okay, so you're telling me like God loves us, but and you guys, you know, the Pharisees are preaching a particular way, but I'm not allowed to do God's work on Sunday because it's the rest day. Well, is that because you don't want to do God's work, or is that because whatever? And it's the same sort of mentality where it's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just keep doing me because I know who I am. It's that confidence or whatever, you know, but I thought that was funny.
I thought what was interesting is that you see the disciples kind of doing it and you see the Pharisees for sure doing it, finding somebody to blame.
Yeah.
Whose fault was this that this man was blind? The disciples
Yeah,
said, because
yeah.
you have to
Good.
stop and think that they probably had heard. Well, it's always somebody's fault that if there's something wrong with you, it's
like a
because you've
repercussion.
sinned. Yeah,
Right.
And Jesus was so clear. You can't mix up his words. Nobody.
I also
Right.
thought it was interesting that his parents were still afraid to say that he was
And
blind
they
at
were
birth.
afraid of being ostracized.
Yeah,
and kicked
that
out.
was kind of crazy to me.
They blamed the son. I don't know. Ask him.
yeah, ask
Right.
him. He's an adult.
I'm like
he
somebody
literally
take
They
responsibility.
literally said, look, he's of age.
Yeah.
Not
don't wanna
my
be
problem
held-
anymore.
Right.
And again, everyone, because here's the deal at this point, right? We're really close. We're getting really close in the timeline to where they're going to
Arrest
crucify
him.
him,
Yeah.
right? Arrest and crucify him. And so they're all figuring this out. There's already a bounty on him. You know,
There's a rumble in the air. I'm sure,
Yes,
around
everyone's
him.
aware, and so they're like, I mean, I can't be counted with this cat,
Right.
And that's why I love what the blind man does because they ask him again. He's like, dude, come on.
How many times do I have to
I
keep
was
saying
born blind. Like, are you guys kidding me?
We're missing
to
the
the
big
point where
picture.
when they ask, I love it. He says, "Oh, you guys want to be his disciple too?
Yes, and
Yeah.
they kick him
Awesome.
out.
Right? Oh yeah."
They
They're
kick
like,
him
"What
out.
are you talking about?" No, we're disciples of Moses because what has he
Yeah.
done for me lately?
Which-
and go ahead.
You know, I don't really know. I'm going to be straight with everybody that's listening to this podcast right now, okay? Just getting this out of the way. I don't mean this in a mean way. I'm just something I've noticed as an observer. For multiple churches, I'd argue almost all of them that the general tendency, like Jesus found a man on a Sunday who was...
Nobody's fault that he was blind.
Right, and I get everybody struggles different, but I would say he was having a bad Sunday, right? Can't see.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe not perspective.
And he was being
He
spit on,
and yeah,
and he was a beggar.
exactly.
So he definitely wasn't living at mom and dad's house.
exactly, and was known for this,
Yeah.
but not for being blind. So
Yeah.
Could be fooling all of us to this day. But something I've noticed is that Jesus stopped for that person. And I know this is a separate story, but also like the woman at the well is another example of church. Ironically, this is the fourth use of ironically. I'm sorry for everyone listening. I'm going to think of some synonyms here, but
Unusual.
yeah, there you go. Where the church has a tendency to want to fit into a certain aesthetic. And if there's a person that may not look that way, or maybe looks a little bit less fortunate, or whatever the case may be, which I would venture to say is probably one of the greatest things about Christianity in general, is that you don't have to be a special level of whatever person. Like, we're all made individually and crafted by God and whatever, right? So there's no qualifying factors. And then you see pretty frequently like the certain cliques form and stuff like that. And it's refreshing to read the source about why we gather every Sunday in general. Is this guy that stopped for a beggar on the street who couldn't see.
Go ahead.
No.
I think I see the opportunistic level of ministry all the way down to Jesus choosing the disciples. In one case, the disciples chose him, right? So you have John the Baptist's disciples that they're like, he says, hey, that's the Messiah. They run after him and they're like, hey, we're going to follow you now. But then it's opportunistic. And this is not something that's clear in Scripture, so I'll just say this is my belief, is that Jesus didn't handpick them. That was the opportunity. They were there. He spoke life to them. He didn't go to find this beggar. The beggar was there. It was an opportunity to minister, and he didn't hold back. Now, there are some people that are going to say, no, you're taking away divine providence. God made all this happen. And here's the only thing I'm going to say. If that's your theology, then when he doesn't choose you, how do you feel?
Right.
Because that characteristic, if you're not the one being chosen by God, that rejection, that's not of the Father.
That's not God's heart.
So it's not about rejection, in my opinion. Okay, it's about opportunity, and I think this is the deal. To kind of speak, Gabe, to what you're talking about, is there are a lot of organizations that target ministry. Right. They go and part of that's gifting. And I totally get that. Right. You have a gifting towards that. But it's like if I'm going down the road and I'm like, well, I'm a youth pastor and there's an old lady who's crossing the street. Well, I'm a youth pastor. Like, I don't minister to old people, right? I mean, that's silly. And,
put it in a box.
Yeah, and I don't know many guys. That's an extreme example. I mean, I don't know any youth pastor I've ever met who wouldn't help an old lady.
Would say that, right? But it's a good example.
Yeah, and I think that happens with all walks of life. Like, well, it's not my calling.
Right. Well, if he's a beggar, a lot of people are going to go, well, that he's not my calling, not my type of people. But they did notice him and they spit on him. And how ironic that when he could see, nobody recognized him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so did you just see him or did you never look at the man? Because now that the man can see, he sees you.
Yeah.
He's looking you in the eye and you don't even recognize him.
Yeah.
They don't even know who he was. And he's going, it's
There's
me.
no wall to hide behind.
Yeah. He's going, it's me. Well, first of all, now I'm not a beggar.
Right.
Now, not only did Jesus give him
Guess
his
what?
sight, but he gave him confidence.
Right. Yeah.
And he gave him probably the ability to work.
Right.
So, and then he goes back and finds Jesus and he really accepts Jesus as the Messiah. And so here's a picture of a man who gets healed unorthodox way and the church, the religious people rejecting because it wasn't on a Sunday. Well, if this hadn't happened and this man, let's say he could see and he went to church, they probably would have tried to convert him into their religion or their whatever it was. But since it happened so unorthodox and they couldn't put it in their box of church, so then they had to find something wrong with it. Who did this? This happened on the Sabbath. Why did this happen? And the guy's going, I don't know. All I know is I was blind and now I can see.
He was a bystander, so to speak. He was just the object.
That got a whole chapter in the book of John. And then he goes and he becomes, and he says, yes, you are the Messiah. Mm-hmm. You are the Son of God. And that probably follows Jesus the rest of his life. And, it's so interesting to me because we are building towards the crucifixion.
Right.
I wonder where this man was when all that was happening. I wonder if he just stood back and said, no, I know who that is.
Yeah.
You will never see him again. He's never talked about again, but you have to know he's somewhere in that town when Jesus is being crucified. So, and he'll always remember And then his parents too, even though in front of people they didn't really put the validation. But I often wonder if because he grew up and the blame had to be on the parents or him, they probably grew up going, we've been blamed our whole life if we sinned because we gave him this. Because why else would the disciples ask that question?
Right.
So they're dealing with their own sort of rejection from the church or from the people.
Well, and the odd thing is, and the disciples must not have known he was born blind, because how could he have sinned if he was born blind?
Right. Right.
So I think, but it, as we previously stated, it speaks to the predisposition of the people of the day. It's like something had to happen. But yeah, the parents were likely ostracized because they had a kid born blind. Like it wasn't.
So what did you do, Mom? Did you sin while you were pregnant? What happened?
She probably smoked.
She probably drank too much wine at the wedding.
Let's be honest.
John 1.
But and one of the things that I thought about too, as you were kind of talking about this with the church is again we have built the modern church has built everything around Sundays. I was talking to a contractor, because this is kind of interesting. I do some install work, and I was talking to a contractor, and we're all working at churches, and they couldn't figure out why things were taking so long. And having worked at church, I said, it's because churches work 52 times a year. Yeah. And it's not to say you don't have full-time people, but they think in terms of Sunday to Sunday. Yeah. And so everything is, I'll get with you next week. It's like, can you not just meet with somebody at your church on a Tuesday afternoon? Yeah. Like what's the big deal for meeting them for lunch or whatever? Right. But it happens all the way down, like I said, to contractors. They think in terms of Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. Yeah. And so everything moves slow and bureaucratically. And I think that's the whole point. I don't think Jesus recognized, he didn't go, it's a Sabbath. I'm going to catch a bunch of junk for this. He didn't even process it. He's like, okay. The Sabbath is for resting. Now this guy's going to really be able to rest tonight. Probably the best rest he's ever had.
But sometimes I flip over to the other side and say, no, he probably did know exactly what he was doing.
Well, he knew.
He was like,
I'm sure he's conscious of it.
He's probably like, this is going to start a ruckus.
Right.
But I'm here to make it happen.
Right. I don't think that I guess that was my bigger point. He certainly, right. And he certainly wouldn't have waited till the Sabbath to do it. Right. He was like, well, tomorrow's the Sabbath and I could really raise a stink. but I think, but this is the precise point of it all, right? Is that, what? That's not even a thought process. I am here to do what my Father tells me to do. And right now he's presented an opportunity and I can heal this man, and he's telling me to do it.
So apply it to our lives. How many times, because I've done this, how many times do you go to do something that is right for the person that's in front of you to say or to do, or to maybe even post something or acknowledge something, and you have that catchback thought?
Oh man, yeah.
Of
repercussion.
What if somebody, and then so you either water it down or you don't do it or you side skirt it, because if certain people, religious people, church people, find out what you did or who you hung out with, I don't want that lashback. I mean, I'm not so much that way anymore, but kind of starting this journey, I was. Yeah. I wanted to kind of hide who I hung out with, or my new thought, belief, or my new way of coming to understand what God's heart is like, that, because I didn't want to be ostracized.
I think we get, Paul says, if it offends your brother to eat meat, don't eat meat, this little concept. And I think we've taken that to a new level, because we do have to understand the value of what we're trying to do. So, for example, this happened to me just last night. I posted a picture of a milkshake Lori made me. By the way, it was amazing. And when I said a homemade milkshake, just so anyone who saw that post knows, it was homemade ice cream that she made first.
Dang.
And then the milkshake out of that homemade ice cream. So it was like,
wow.
Yeah. So it was really good. But here was the thought I had. I posted this.
Sometimes I miss it here, man.
I'm
just thinking about what I had last night.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Gabe is my son. So everyone's like, what?
What'd you have last night?
This was, we're recording this in your old bedroom.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It's crazy. It is weird.
So, no, we're not getting off topic. Yeah, not to his food last night.
Cuisine pizza.
That's me too.
But my point is, I posted this picture of this milkshake that she made me, and I had my reservation is it was in a Sam Adams glass.
It was, wasn't it?
And I got one comment. I wondered.
Did you really?
I wondered. And it wasn't a negative one. It was a.
This is what I thought. I thought, man, that's really good, and that's the perfect glass. It's nice.
It
and
was
tall
the
and
perfect
thin,
glass. Exactly. And that's really why I use that glass more than anything. Is it's the right size. Like you get a milkshake and it's huge. Anyway.
But you know what? There would have probably been a day I would have noticed that first. I noticed the glass and then the phone case.
Did you notice it?
I didn't even notice the phone case.
That's funny.
I did. But that's a perfect example on how I was once blind, but now I see.
Yeah.
I saw the most important thing, and the religious thing, the thing that doesn't even matter, didn't blind me. It wasn't glaring at me. There was no judgment. It was like, dang, I want one of those.
Yeah.
You know, I want that blessing. I want to be at that house. It's perfect
That's what
example.
Gabe was thinking.
Perfect example.
Now, actually.
Even if there was Sam Adams there.
but that's the whole thing, is that we've gotten in this world of just, the church is really quick to criticize the cancel culture that exists in the world, but the originators of cancel culture was in the church. They canceled out a person because their sin was made known, and the first ones to do the canceling are those whose sin has not been made known.
Okay, so explain cancel
Cancer? It's terrible.
culture for anybody new listening.
Well, I mean, cancel culture in today's world is, if you don't line up with society's norms, then we're going to shut you out.
Delete.
Right. Anything, you're basically ostracized from the community, blacklisted, A on your chest, whatever you want to associate it with. And I say the church originated it. I mean, that's all that Jesus was dealing with, was the outcasts. And he said, I didn't come for the people who are well. I came for the sick. That's why I'm with these people. They're sick.
When I read this to Adam and other stories we've read, he said it, he'll say this almost every time. The people Jesus hung out with, those are the people I want to hang out with.
Yeah.
He said, those are the people that are not necessarily in church on Sunday morning. They're the people on the job, on the, wherever we hang out, at the Thunder game, at wherever we go. Those are the people he would hang out with, because a lot of times in just my world, when that subject comes up, there's been hurt from the church. There's been ostracized or judgment or kicked out or wrongdoing or spiritually wounded or something that has happened in their life that they've walked away.
Yeah. And I mean, my personal experience with it is weird. It's not your standard, like, I didn't go off and steal money, or, I didn't do something that got me kicked out of church. I watched a lot of it, and it just, every time I'm like, wait a minute. I remember saying to a pastor friend of mine, I said, I hope that I live to see a day when a pastor can have a major moral failure and not lose his entire ministry. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying that it's an okay. I'm not giving a free pass. I'm just talking about grace and love and restoration, for goodness sake.
I've been on this side, that side of the pastor arena for a long time, and what's funny is they'll let a lot of things go on behind closed doors, except that one.
Yeah.
The moment that comes forward, everything is. It's like the unpardonable.
Yeah.
And nothing is the unpardonable. Everything is covered. Everything should be covered by grace, love, safety, protection, and just being there for that person.
Yeah. But, and it's complicated, and I get that.
I
totally get that. But anyway, there it is. John chapter 9.
Fast.
Yeah, it's a whole chapter.
I know.
We're gonna jump into chapter 10 here next week, and if you're watching this way off in the future, you can just go right to it, because you're binging John right now, and you're thinking, man, Jeremy's hair sure is getting longer.
It is.
And Gabe's is getting shorter.
Yeah, no,
mine turned purple.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you too for being a part. And I'm going to pray real quick, and then we'll be out of here. Lord, thank you so much for today. And we just ask that all of this stuff we discussed today, that those listening have embraced what you've said to them, that as they read through these passages and you begin to reveal truth to them, I pray that gets rooted deep inside of them, their guts, and that those reeds grow deep, and that the word of God, your word, flows through them and permeates their life, and that they don't sacrifice what you've told them for anything else, because your word is eternal. We thank you for it, and we give you glory for it in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you guys. Thanks again for joining us. I know I say it a lot, but I mean it. And if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and jump on redux.church. Reach out to us. Send us a little message saying, what annoys you about this or what you love about it. I don't care either way. I just want to know your name. So anyway, God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.